Welcome, welcome, welcome to AARP Minnesota State Fair Virtual Showcase. Our state fair is a great state fair indeed. My name is Mychael Rambo, and we welcome you to this virtual experience where we're going to share with you a showcase of amazing people. Many of you are watching here because you are AARP members, or maybe you're here because of your guest of AARP members or looking forward to becoming one. Whatever the case, you will probably know a lot about this organization and our purpose to empower us all as we get older. AARP has hosted a booth in the State Fair's educational building for years and a big celebration in the Dan Patch Park on the main stage there each year as far back as I can remember back. As a matter of fact, I used to be the host and MC for the last couple of years for that band showcase showdown of different bands across the Twin Cities. Well, that aside, AARP helps connect us to all that's good about Minnesota and also works on some serious issues like protecting Social Security and Medicare, or making sure that you all can vote safely in this upcoming election. And we protect vulnerable elders. Those are some of our important issues and so many more. The issues are important to us, but we want to let you know that tonight we're going to take it to the lighter side, the brighter side, and we're going to introduce you to some really cool folks. With the fair shut down this year, we decided to put this into what we call a virtual showcase. We're going to assemble a group of really fascinating state fair personalities for a series of interviews that will give you a chance to get to know some of these great players. We have some folks who have won 135 blue ribbons. Can you imagine? Someone who's been to the fair every year since 1947. And we're going to give you a chance to get to know someone who lived across the street from the fair his entire life. Not to mention this really cool cat that knows everything about the food, the fun, and the festivities of the state fair. You can't beat it. It's going to be a great experience. That's what we're showcasing, a chance for you to understand the value of something important, an experience. Experiences make the world go round. We also want to hear from you tonight. So please, use the chat in the side of the screen there, of your screen, and jot in a couple of notes. We've even had some folks already chatting in with us already this evening, and we're so happy that they're out there making little references so that we can know that they're here. Now, just to get the party started, let's get this party started. We're going to have some of you, or all of you, feel free to chat to this response, or this question, I should say. Let us know where you're from. Check in, like a shabuya, roll call. We want to hear from you. We want to know where you're viewing from. That being said, our first interview is with a guy named Jerry Hammer. Now, Jerry's a really amazing fellow. He's the State Fair General Manager. He's someone who has a long history and a deep dedication to the great Minnesota get-together, and he's someone I can't imagine you wouldn't want to know personally. And here's a chance to do so. Let's take a look. We're here with a really amazing fellow. He is I guess he's got the state fair in his DNA. DNA insofar as he grew up near the state fair, has been a part of the state fair for over 44 years, and has been the general manager for over 18 years. And I'd like to introduce you to Jerry Hammer. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, T. Mychael. How are you today?
I am fantastic. And now that I'm having a chance to meet you formally, I am just really overjoyed because we were just, before we start recording, we're talking about the fact that when I say that the state fair is in your DNA, I mean, it kind of is, because it seems to me that, well, tell us a little bit why that rings true.
Well, part of it is growing up so close to it. You know, I grew up about a block away, a little less than a block away, actually, from the fairgrounds. And when you're a kid, you have Como Park on one side, which is outstanding, and then the state fair on the other. Right. So we basically literally grew up at the fair. We spent every day there as kids. We snuck in when we didn't have to, even on Kids' Day, just out of matter of principle. Quite lit again when you spend every day of the fair at the fair, when you know from the time you're basically old enough to walk, it really does become part of you in ways that you'd never suspect or even know, until you get a little bit older and can really appreciate it. But I started working at the fair at age 15. Now, that was 1970. I was at Cretin High School at the time, and I worked in the greenhouse, planting all the flowers and taking care of the grounds, getting ready for the fair every year. And I did that all through high school and college. And then spent just a few months at a newspaper in Owatonna, and with that exception of just that little bit of gap, I came back to the fair, started working full time in 1977. So I have 40. Boy, this is my 44th year as a full-time staff member. It's my 51st year when you add in greenhouse. And I've been a general manager. This is my 24th year.
What's going on this year for this? I mean, I know that we're not going to be able to attend physically, but there's some great things that give audiences and members of the community and visitors a chance to experience a sense of, a feel, a taste, a smidget of the state fair, because you've had some great things that are going on right now, coming up in about a week or so. Can you say some things about that?
Yeah, there's a number of programs. There's with fairs all over North America. At least events have been canceled around the world, but around all throughout North America, there's lots of talks about virtual fairs and exactly what that'd be. But in our case, it's engaging people in as much participation as we can. So we went ahead. We're doing our 2020 State Fair Fine Arts Show, and people will actually be able to attend that, but it's in very limited numbers, and you have to schedule times ahead of time because we want to do everything safely. You can also get, there will be out very soon, some crop art, especially for kids, to get them. And crop art's it grew in Minnesota from something literally started by one person, Lillian Colton from Owatonna. It turned into this huge program where we hear from people all over North America about seed art. They call it, but we're developing kits for kids where you can make your own crop art. There's also online, there's a lot of state fair vendors that, hey, we're out of business this year, so that means they are as well. But you can go online and find on the fair site and find almost 300 of those vendors and hook up and see what kinds of things they might have, so you get a little taste of the fair that way. And then you can get a literal taste of the fair starting on 20th of August, the State Fair Food Parade, our first ever. And that's an event where instead of our 300 food vendors, you get 16, but at least it's something. And it's an event we created, again, with safety in mind.
Do you have one or two favorite memories or one thing that may stand out that you can leave us with before we go?
Wow, we did the fair is just this conglomeration of so many different things. But I got to tell you one thing from 2005, we established a Minnesota Veterans Garden. It's there to honor all of Minnesota's military veterans, regardless of when they served. Now, my dad was a D-Day guy. He was 4th Infantry in World War II. His unit suffered 385% casualties. How do you do that? Well, replacements. The U.S. strategy then was to not pull anybody out because the war was going to be over so quick once D-Day happened. Well, they were very wrong. Anyway, that's what my dad did. As a 19-year-old, it's hard to even imagine that. So the very first year when we started the Veterans Garden, we had it was on the day that it was on the 60th anniversary of the end of World War II. On that very day. So we had representatives from the U.S. Army, which was my dad. Leo McGough McGough Construction was a flyer. He was a navigator in a B-17. We had a guy from the Navy, and we had a guy from the Marine Corps. So we had four veterans of World War II raise the flag at the Veterans Garden, and we do a ceremony there every year. And my dad died in February of 2014, but he made every ceremony. He died at 89, so he got up there pretty good. A very good, long, productive, happy life. But he made every one of those ceremonies, and every year we would acknowledge something special. You know, women in military, or we brought in plaques to commemorate different conflicts, all the way from the Civil War, where Minnesota was very prominent, right through Vietnam. And my dad made every one of those, and having him there while I was doing these ceremonies every year, out of so many different things, you know, that's what it comes back to, his family and special moments. And a Vietnam veteran told me a few years ago, he said, you know, this spot has become holy ground. And based on the turnout that we get every year for those ceremonies, Vietnam vets, not really many. You know, I think there was one World War II vet last year. We're at that time now. There's very few left. Some Korea War vets, and people have served in the Gulf. So we have all age groups there. There's a lot of truth to that particular spot, what it means to people, and that's the kind of thing. And the fair has hundreds, thousands of examples like that. That's one example. It's really close to home for me because my dad was such a big part of that.
Man, Jerry, it's been so great chatting with you today about the State Fair, about the Great Minnesota Get Together, and about your commitment to it. I want to make sure that before we close out, do you have any closing remarks or thoughts that you may have that might share, inviting people or saying some certain inspirational moments that you may have before we close out?
There's one that gives a lot of perspective to it. This happened now 20 years ago. It's quite a while ago now, but it was the end of the day. Fireworks had just gone off, and a lady came up to the admin building, and she was looking for her car that she parked by the trolley stop. It's the trolley stop. Well, she'd arrived at and she was close to 90, if not 90. She came to the fair by herself. She spent all day. And when you arrive at the fair in the morning, it looks a lot different at night. You know, now it's dark. Boy, you get all turned around. It's a huge place. And I figured out eventually, so I put her in one of the state fair vehicles, and I gave her a ride, and we found it. It was parked behind the grandstand. And I was telling her where the old racetrack used to be, and there were horse races here, and I'm going on and on with all the history stuff. And she just started laughing. She said, "You made that sound like that was a long time ago." So that was a light bulb moment for me, you know. And now that I'm 65, I can, you know, we all know how quick this goes. You blink and wow, I remember being in high school, and now I have 5 grandkids.
Right.
It was such a great line, and she was such a sweet lady. That helped me realize, as long as I've been at the fair, still, when you look at the entire history of the fair, the whole timeline of the fair, you know, those 50 years aren't really all that long. The fair's been around since before Minnesota was a state, and it looks nothing today like it did. It doesn't look anything today like it did when I started as a kid, except, you know, the historic buildings are in the same place. But it's a real long way of saying that the fair has this wonderful heritage. It means so much to so many people, and as long as we stay focused on that and understand what the fair needs to be and how it brings us together like nothing else possibly can, then the fair's future looks very bright. And yes, there's no fair this year, and it's weird, it's bizarre. You know, the last time this happened was 1946, and I'd wondered over the years how the folks back then actually handled that, and now we're learning firsthand. But the fair's future does remain bright.
Wow, you couldn't have ended our conversation any better than that, with giving us motivation, inspiration, and cause to realize that we can't take for granted what happens at the Great Minnesota Get Together, because for every visitor, for every person, there's something that's brand new, and the wonder and the incredible, marvelous opportunities that exist at Minnesota State Fair is something for everyone to partake in. Thanks for sharing your time with us today. We thank you so much, and we can't wait to see you on the grounds. And if we see you, we'll wave at you and say, "Hey, there's
the parade
manager." Have a great day, Jerry.
Thanks, T. Michael, very much. Thanks for the opportunity, and hello to everybody. We'll see you at the fair.
Wow. Wasn't that cool? Getting a chance to meet general manager of the Minnesota's Great Get Together, the State Fair general manager, Jerry Hammer. Hey, the question we asked you earlier about that roll call, checking in to see where people are from. We've got folks in from Burnsville, from Minneapolis, from St. Paul, from all across the Twin Cities. And we're so delighted to hear people just chiming in. It was great to hear Jerry talk about 44 years of service, of being a person on the state fairgrounds, working from the greenhouse all the way into the administrative building. What an amazing trajectory and tour of service to the state fair. We're going to get going and keep it moving here. But before we do, we want to get you all to chat in and chime in again on another question. Now, this question was brought up by one of our earlier responders. And the question is, what is your favorite fair food? So I know that's going to get a lot of you going because Jerry talked about the food parade. I'm not sure if anyone who's viewing with us tonight actually had a chance to go on the food parade. But if you have a favorite food, check us out and let us know what that food is. Now, let's move on. This next segment is with a woman who is just stellar. Her name is Barb Shyler, and she has been named by some as the most prestigious processor of the pantry. Yep, you guessed it. Barb is a wizard at canning vegetables and fruits and things of all kinds. And she has been a person who's won over 135 blue ribbons. So many ribbons, they had to actually come up with a different color and a whole new ribbon just to celebrate her successes. Let's get a chance to meet Barb Shawler and talk to her person to person. Let's take a look. I'd like to introduce to you Barb Shawler. And Barb is certainly one of the most amazing canners in the country, if not in the state of Minnesota, in the country, I would like to say.
Oh,
now,
dear.
would you go so far as to say that to yourself, Barb, or are you being modest?
There is a big resurgence in canning, and there are many, 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 many people who do a lot more of it than I do. I just have more fun than most of them do, I think.
That's great. I think fun is one of the biggest parts of canning because it can be tedious. So if you aren't having fun, then you're not doing the right thing, I think, in life.
I always remember what my mother used to say, because you do most of, canners who are canning fruit mostly do it in the summertime. And I can remember staring at a crate of peaches, mumbling about having to peel them. And she'd say, Barbie, you have to can when the fruit is ready, not when you're ready.
Ah, what wise pearls of wisdom. Speaking
Yes.
of pearls, I rather love the pearls that you're wearing.
Thank you, sir. June Cleaver lives.
Oh, I love that. Barb, we would love to know more about your history with the Great Minnesota Get Together, with the State Fair. Would you care to share a few high points or some of that history with us?
It all began in about, we moved in here in 1969. And a few years later, my mom gave us a plum tree that was planted up on the hill in our backyard. When the fruit started bearing and falling to the ground and rotting there because I didn't do anything with it at the time, my husband said, do something with that fruit or I'm going to prune that tree at ground level. Oops. So after a couple years of gathering the fruit and not doing anything with it still, my next door neighbor said that would make great plum jelly. I asked her a couple questions and then I started doing it. And after that, not too long, because by 1981, my brother-in-law's aunt had been a judge at the fair in clothing, and she's a lovely woman. She encouraged me to enter it at the state fair, and I thought, well, that sounds like a good time. Terrifying, but still fun. And so I did, and by golly, the first time I ever entered plum jelly, I entered 4 jars: plum jelly, corn relish, 2 kinds of dill pickles. And I had 2 blue ribbons.
What?
And yes,
First
I had.
time in.
Well, actually, there was another time earlier. I'd entered 1 jar and got a 4th place for something else. But it's the corn relish and the plum jelly both won 1st place. And I like to tell people that there's nothing like success to encourage a person, T. Michael.
That is absolutely right. And
So I've never looked back.
well, it's good you never look back because we are so fortunate to have your amazing skill set and your enthusiasm in the canning area. Now, how many blue ribbons have you won to date?
You know, I have a spreadsheet, and I don't have it with me, but I think the number of blue ribbons is about 135. And then there are some special awards as well. In fact, one of my most prized achievements is a sweepstakes ribbon, ta-da, that was awarded a purple ribbon. They've never given purple ribbons to canners before, but last year they did. And my dilled green bean pickles were deemed to be the best out of all the pickled vegetables that were entered. And that includes the pickled dirt chunks and the pickled cucumbers, and they're awfully good.
A pickled green bean.
Yes,
I
yes.
bet that would make a nice Niçoise salad or something else delicious.
It also makes a pretty decent stir stick for a mixture of tomato juice and some other spirit.
Oh, something like a Mary of some sort.
A Mary, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Mary was my mother's name. What can I say?
Oh, there you go. What a saintly crew. Hey,
Yeah.
now, because you have been a part of the fair experience here in Minnesota since well before 1981, but that being when you got that first set of ribbons.
1981 is pretty close. Yep.
Pretty close, yeah. What are some of the things that are standouts that you might miss? Because we're clearly not getting together this year for the Minnesota State Fair. So what are some of the points that might be ones that you'll be missing out on?
You know, one of the most exciting parts of it, believe it or not, is all in the run up to it, because I would have started canning in May. And primarily I do soft spreads, jams and jellies, but also some pickles and relishes and tomato things. But those days when everything has to be all labeled and the entries have to be turned in, and you get a look at this amazing space that does not look anything like it looks on opening day of the fair. And that's always exciting because you kind of want to check out and see, well, what does that jar over there look like, and how does mine compare to it? Favorably, we always hope. And the people, I miss the people, because after doing this for so many years, there are people I see once a year, and we greet them, they greet me, and it's good to do a little catch up. One lady had twins last year, so how are those twins doing? And Barb, how are you doing? You've been a busy lady, I can see, because you've made 20 entries, which is the maximum number that the canners can enter. And it's always about the people, I really think that.
Barb, you bring up such a great point. From so many of the people we've spoken to, and from so many that we speak to independently from this program, the people, it just shares so much about the human condition and the spirit that we bring to it, and how important we are as social beings, that the interaction is so much a dynamic part of the Minnesota State Fair experience and life in general. Yeah. I wonder if you happen to have a favorite memory when we're talking about what might be a favorite memory of yours.
Can I have about 40 favorite memories?
Well, how about sharing one that might dovetail into a second?
I don't know that I could whittle it down to one, Michael.
Okay.
Certainly the blue ribbon last year, the purple ribbon, excuse me, that was really special because it's never been done before. The fact that I've been named the State Fair's best canner 9 times is pretty darn special, because nobody else has done that. The most anybody else has won, I think, is maybe 3 times. And I've the whole thing. I had a marriage proposal from a man who tasted my corn relish and my pickled beets. I call them pickled dirt chunks. Actually, that's one of my favorite memories. I've won 4 blue ribbons for those pickled beets, and I've never tasted them.
What?
No, I don't eat them. I call them pickled dirt chunks. Everybody talks about that wonderful earthy flavor, and I say, yeah, that's dirt. And I could sit at the table as a kid longer than my mother could make me sit there until I was going to eat them.
Isn't that something? So beets, not you're fancy. You have been
They are
fancy by being a blue ribbon winner for canning pickled beets. Well, we talked about those items that you have created, those that you've canned over the years that have brought you blue ribbons. And we've talked about memories and some of the things that you might miss. I'm just curious, if you were to give yourself a blue ribbon for your best and favorite canned item, what item would you give yourself a blue ribbon for?
That one, I think maybe apricot butter.
Oh.
And it doesn't have anything to do with dairy products.
Yeah.
Fruit butters are the puree of the fruit that's cooked down and spiced, perhaps not, and sweetened, perhaps not. You might think mostly of apple butter, and I'm partial to apricots almost however they show up. And I have made plum butter, blue winning plum butter from the trees, from the fruit from the tree in the backyard too. That tree has met its demise, and but there was a new sprout coming out of it, and so there is still some of my mother's plum tree in our backyard, and I bet in a few years it'll be producing more plums too for the next person who lives in this home.
That's a great story about the resilience of Mother Nature and the beauty of fruits that she brings and provides for us. And this idea of apricot butter. I love apricots myself. I love the jellies, the jams, the preserves, you name it. And so one of these days I'll have to try some of that apricot butter. That sounds delicious.
And I like the fruit butters. I'm duty bound to say this because they're so versatile. Not only do they make a terrific bread spread, but they're also really good as a condiment. And if you had a little spoonful of my apricot butter on a plate next to a piece of roast chicken or roast pork, you might find out what heaven is like.
Well, heaven must be like this. Because speaking with you has been an absolute joy and a delight. We're so very thankful for your amazing talents, your creativity, and your 9-time winning being the State Fair's best canner. And you've become a best friend of ours here at AARP. Thank you, Barb.
Thank you
so much for your time.
The pleasure's been mine, Mychael.
Wow, Barb Shawler. I have to say, I'm still just floored by her referring to those award-winning beets as dirt chunks. I just think that if you're like me and are a lover of beets, how could you give such a name to something we beet lovers absolutely adore? In our chat, we had a few folks who commented that they too are beet lovers. Well, anyway, you can't beat having someone like Barb on your team if she's going to be doing some canning for you, but something she wants you to remember more than anything else about her conversation regarding beets and canning and preserves is that you be safe in how you're handling the process of your canning. She asks that each of us who are doing the canning and preserving food items, that you check out the website for the National Center for Home Food Preservation so that you can ensure that whatever you're preparing and making for your family, friends, and loved ones, that they get it in the best quality and as safely as possible. Okay, now we're going to interview 2 representatives from 4-H. That's right, the 4-H Club. Now, I don't think we could have a state fair if it wasn't for 4-H. And I'm sure that some of you out there might even be familiar with the 4-H pledge. If you're ready. All right, let's go. Here we go. All together now. I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, for my community, for my country, for my world. How about that? And to think I've got that down packed. How to do. Okay, we're going to meet firsthand in our next video Dr. Jennifer Scusa. Dr. Scusa is the 4-H state director, and we're going to meet Nolan Hansen. Nolan is one of our youth advisors. Two really, really wonderful people that we're going to get a chance to hear from right now. Let's take a look. There's no business like 4-H business, like no business I know. Hey! What a way to start, and what a way to get to know two amazing individuals. I'm T. Mychael, and I'm going to have a chance to share with you some insights, some thoughts, some memories, and some things we might miss out about the State Fair, the Great Minnesota Get-Together. But first, we're going to get to know these two dynamic individuals. Dr. Jennifer Scusa. Now, Jennifer is here with us as the State Area Director of the 4-H Club, and she's also the Associate Dean for Youth and Development at the University of Minnesota. Good day, good evening. How are you, Dr. Scusa?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having us on today.
Oh, you're more than welcome, Jennifer. And Nolan, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. Now, Nolan, on the other hand, Nolan is the big Swiss. He is one of the two 4-H ambassadors from his region. And Nolan, say some more about what it means to be a 4-H ambassador and what that role entails.
Being a 4-H ambassador is just really a unique experience. You get to work with a big team, a really diverse team from all across the state, and just get to know each other and just really be the face of Minnesota 4-H. It's really a great experience.
Well, you've got a great face for it, mister. You know, I have to ask, when it comes to 4-H, Jennifer, would you say some more about what 4-H encompasses? And for people who don't really know what the 4 and the H stands for, maybe you can help us understand that.
Absolutely. Well, 4-H is the largest youth serving organization in this state. Believe it or not, we have over 66,000 young people who participate all year long, I know. And they range in ages from 5 to about 19. And they're from all parts of the state, whether it's rural, whether it's urban, suburban, as well as tribal. And it's an educational program where young people are learning to get into their passions and get excited about what excites them, as well as to share that with others, to do service that really makes a difference in our communities, but also to learn leadership skills that they can apply now, but also into the future. So it's a great program.
And, you know, Nolan, it seems to me that you have certainly embraced these leadership skills. What are some of the things that you are immediately doing right now when it comes to 4-H? Just a few things.
Right now, our ambassador team is really working to figure out our service project for this year. And we're reaching out to different people and just figuring out what the need is for youth right now and just what are they wanting during these times.
What might you be missing out on, or what experience might you miss this year about the State Fair?
Yeah, as a state ambassador, you really get to be with all the kids and just really learn where they're coming from. That's really what I'm gonna miss this year, is just getting to know all the kids from all the different regions and just hanging out with them and going to the dances at night with them. So it's gonna be something I'm gonna miss this year. I
see. So I guess you got a few dance moves, huh? No. Sounds like you got a little on there.
I sure try.
Well, that's great to know. It's great to know. Now, I myself, when I take my goddaughter and my niece to the State Fair, they love all the little animals there in the state in the 4-H village, and I know that those animals are so important and so endeared to you both. What are some of your favorite memories about the State Fair and about being in that space? Jennifer?
Oh, when I think about, have you been to the Coliseum? You know how big that building is and just how lovely it is. For me, at the beginning of the beef show, it is special because it's this huge Coliseum. You feel a bit like a gladiator in there, and to see all these young people coming through with their animals, it's It's incredible. So that's one experience I look back on and it's like, oh, I'm really going to miss that this year. But I am looking forward to what we'll be doing in the coming years.
What a fond memory. Hey, Noah, what kind of memory do you have that you can think of that really stands out for you?
Yeah, one of my favorite memories is staying in the dorms that connect the beef barn and the swine barn. And that's just really cool because it has no one really, I never knew that there was dorms up there until I actually stayed up there. And so it was just really cool staying up there and looking through the windows and seeing the crowds of people. So,
well, I can just see Airbnb just taking up the mantle of beef and swine barn and having a lovely opportunity to stay in one of those great dorms. Oh yeah, I bet that's loads of fun, loads of fun. Now, because you're not going to be, we all are not going to be in the Great Minnesota Get Together, the state fair. What might some of the things that 4-H will be doing instead of the fair, or what will you be doing virtually that'll help support people's enthusiasm and their continued support with 4-H? Jennifer?
Oh, yeah. Ever since COVID-19 hit, so I think back to March, we have been busy putting all of our programming online, as well as doing hybrid programming where youth are interacting face-to-face, but doing it safely, but also interacting online. So what we have coming up in the very near future, at the end of August, as well as the beginning of September, is we're going to have virtual events. For all of the events that would have taken place at the state fair, we'll have safe, virtual, high-quality educational experiences where youth will get a chance to show that steer, as well as maybe show their social activism. Whatever project it might be, they're going to have a virtual opportunity to do that safely with a judge as well as other youth. It's going to be very exciting.
Jennifer, that sounds fantastic. And I can only imagine there's so many young people who will be so gratified to know that they can still have their best experience while we're in the midst of something that may feel a little challenging, a little chaotic. Yeah. Now,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. Nolan, how about you? What will you be doing? Not instead of, but in addition to what we're experiencing right now. What might you be doing virtually or live somewhere around here?
yeah, as Jennifer said, those virtual shows. So the state ambassador team's recording videos and like fun little intro videos to play before the youth are joined with their conference judging. And so just to tell them what's going to happen and say what they're looking forward to and just inform them so they, especially those first year or 4-Hers, just have them be comfortable in this times where it was all online.
Yeah. Well, this has been so amazing just to get to know and get the chance to share some of your thoughts and your insights, some of your memories, and some of the great work that you're both doing with 4-H. Before we go, I just thought I'd give you both a chance to maybe share some closing thoughts or something might be coming up that you want our viewers to be aware of and be thinking about as we move through 2020 and into 2021. How about you, Jennifer?
Oh, I thank you for the opportunity for this interview. Yeah, and in closing, I just want to wish everybody well as we wrap up this summer and as we look to the fall. And if you are interested in 4-H youth development and doing some great after school or out of school time activities, we're the people to call. So hopefully you can get in touch with any one of us across the state.
Oh, great. Hey, Nolan, how about you?
It really has been great to join you with this interview and something that just for youth and just really everyone to take advantage of opportunities that come your way and just don't be afraid to hop at opportunities like this.
That's great. I love knowing that you're encouraging other young people like yourself to understand the importance and the time and the relevance and the value of the 4-H experience. To you both, thank you once again. And as I started out our interview with, there's no business like 4-H business, like no business I know. Ah, what a great show and what a great chance to get to know you both. Have a beautiful remainder of your evening. That's right. There's no business like 4-H business. Everything about it is appealing. It sure sounded like it. Listening to Dr. Scusa, Jennifer, and Nolan firsthand was really a great way to get a sense of the importance and the vitality and the enthusiasm that people who participate with 4-H get, have, and spread to others. It's infectious. Hey, we're now going to move on to another conversation from a folk a person, he's not a folk, he's a person who has a unique craft, a skill set. He is the gentleman who is responsible for the handicrafts there at the Minnesota State Fair. It's the only fair in the country that has this sort of seed art competition. It's a unique handcraft art form that no other state fair has a competition for. Along with those things, we're going to hear what his thoughts are about seed art and the power of this art form at other state that others are trying to also get a sense of and participate in. I'm so excited to hear about him. I'm tongue-tied. But in any event, hey, how about you all give us an idea in our chat of some of the hidden gems like this seed art that you have in the state fair that others may not know about? Here's your chance to chime in and let us hear from you. This gentleman here that you're going to meet, Ron Kelsey, is the superintendent of seed art, of crop art, I should say, and he's one of the first persons who hasn't missed the state fair since 1946. He's been participating ever since then. He'll tell you more about that. What an experience. Talk about an experience. Oh, hey, let's take a look at him and his conversation with us right now. Let's take a look at the state fair. It's so good to have you here, Ron. How are you today?
I'm fine. Good. Yeah. Great.
Great. Well, Ron, tell us a little bit about your role and what it is, in fact, that you do at the Great Minnesota Get Together.
Sure. At the Minnesota State Fair for the last 20 years, I've been superintendent of the farm crops area. So it not only includes the crop art, that's a big part of it, but also I'm in charge of certified seed samples that the farmers bring in, open class seed samples, the FFA samples that are brought in. And I'm also in charge of the scarecrows. And then in addition to that, I also have the private collection of seed sacks that I show there. And I have the world's largest collection of seed sacks, and I have 1,200 sacks. And we can't show them all at the state fair because there's not room for them all. But so those are some of the things that I do at the state fair.
Now,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that whole idea of seed art or crop art. How does it differ from other art forms, and how does someone really create a masterpiece like this?
Oh, okay, sure. You can see this picture of crop art that I have here, and I had this made by an individual made this for me as a pattern from a seed sack. And what the individuals do at crop art, which we've been doing for over 50 years at the Minnesota State Fair, they have to use only seeds that are grown in Minnesota, and we can't use any weed seeds. And so then with that, we use Elmer's glue. Almost everybody uses Elmer's glue, and they put all of these seeds into place. And to make a pattern or to make a portrait or whatever they do, that each individual seed has to be put into place. So you can see why it takes a long time to get this done. And part of my responsibility is, before they do the judging at the state fair, last year we had 150 entries, I have to go through them to see that they don't have any weed seeds, because they would be disqualified or at least put down as far as the premiums are concerned. And so I have to look at them to see that they use crops that are grown in Minnesota, and that I have to be able to identify weed seeds and so on, so I know what they've used. And I taught agriculture for 30 years, and then I graduated from the University of Minnesota. So I learned in the agronomy classes, I learned how to identify the weed seeds, and of course knowing the crop from Minnesota, growing up on the farm.
Can you show us the seed sack that was the impetus for this piece of artwork?
Yeah. Okay. So I have to tell you a little bit of my background. My parents showed corn at the state fair and grains for 52 years. And in 1946 was the last time they had a state fair, and because of polio. And that was the year I had polio. And then in 1947 was the first year that I came to the Minnesota State Fair, and I've been coming every year for 72 years. And so I was always dealing with farm crops and that kind of thing. And my parents raising these crops and showing them at the fair, and then me working with FFA and bringing FFA samples there for FFA. So that's why I've always been involved in that area and always in the Ag Hort building. In fact, the Ag Hort building was brand new the first year I came to the state fair. And so I've kind of seen how that's the improvements and so on they've made it in that building too. So that's all kind of a part of it. And the seed sacks, the reason I got into that, collecting the seed sacks, is because my parents raised certified seed, and they raised seed corn. And so these sacks, and I got to thinking later, whatever happened to these seed sacks? Well, the reason that they are very collectible now, because they were used 50 to 60 years ago, and they were used then in cloth, but then they went to making them out of actually plastic and making them out of paper, that kind of thing, because of the economy. So they went away from the actual cloth itself. But the cloth was made, these are made so that you can't wash them because the color comes out, so you can make dish towels and those types of things out of them. So during the Depression, they used everything. And so that's why they're collectible, or they were in the farm buildings and maybe the rodents got them. And another thing is, the reason they're very collectible also is because they have names on them of the farmer or the town that they came from, with the seed that they were selling. It was kind of an advertisement for them on their bag. So that's why they became very collectible also. And then President Roosevelt, FDR, he decided the size of these seed sacks so that you could ship grain across the country in these seed sacks. And another thing, one of the seed companies, Abraham Lincoln was their attorney for that company. So there's a lot of history with these seed sacks, in addition to the fact that people just like look at the graphics, those kinds of things. So it's very interesting.
Ron, tell us a little bit more about how the seed sack competition works, because the not seed sack, but the actual crop art itself, the competition that happens annually, except for this year, of course.
You mean the
seed art competition?
Okay, sure. These individuals bring these. They make there's various classes. So there's youth classes, there's adult classes, and then in some of the classes they can color the seeds, and some they cannot color the seeds. Some have to be all natural seeds. Sometimes it's hard to get a good color in some seeds, so they like to color it. So that goes on a different class. So each one of them has their own class. Then, since I've been working with the State Fair superintendent for 20 years, I also have actually started another class called wearable seed art. You know, you can make earrings out of them, or maybe you can
make a necklace,
a bikini out of one year. So, you can make various clothes or designs in fabric for skirts, or maybe shoes or whatever. So, that's kind of interesting too.
Now, before we close, you've already talked about a great memory you had. Now, are there any final comments you might want to make that might let viewers get a greater sense of what you do and what you enjoy the most about the Minnesota State Fair?
Well, I think what I enjoy the most is talking to the people. I go to the fair every day at 7 o'clock and go home at 9. And I'm behind a desk talking to people, showing them, talking about crop art, talking about seed sacks, talking about the grain samples, and just talking to the people. And it's interesting for me, having been raised in a farm and being a rural person, and meeting the people, the metropolitan people, and all the questions and all the information that you can give the people to help the people with the kind of thing that they like to know about. They don't know about the pollination of corn. They don't know how corn's pollinated. They don't know so many of those things. And they have a lot of good questions. And that's what's fun, meeting the people and talking to the people.
Well, it has been great fun getting to know and to meet you.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming here And I especially appreciate it being a member of AARP. And I also invite everybody to come next year and see all of the things we have on display at the Minnesota State Fair.
Wow, that was Ron Kelsey, Superintendent of Crop Art at the Great Minnesota Get Together, our Minnesota State Fair. What a fascinating fellow. And what great stories about the seed sacks that were the impetus for creating some of the art pieces that we saw that were made out of seeds. I just can't even imagine the time and the dedication it would take to do and discipline to create something out of seeds only. Well, moving on past that, let's go on to our next person that we're going to get a chance to interview with our virtual showcase here this evening at AARP's Great Minnesota Virtual Showcase. Now, this last person we're going to introduce you to is someone who, while the State Fair has been closed down, we know that. This gentleman happens to know all there is to know about the food, the fun, the festivities, and the fabulous things going on at the State Fair, whether we're having it or not. He can give you an update on what's going on related to the State Fair and what's going on in perhaps the years to come. He's so plugged in and he knows it all. He's the guy with the mic. That's right. Give me the mic. His name is Mike Marcotte. And Mike has been a fair, fantastic person for the longest. And tonight, he's now what we call the Fair Fellow. And this very fair, fine fellow is going to give us the scoop on what's going on and the taste of the fair as we all know it. We're going to really enjoy this moment. Let's take a look. Hey, well, give me the mic. Oh, yeah, give me the mic. We're here with Mr. Mychael Marcotte, and boy, what a delight it is to be here with a fellow who has such experience and such a life journey with the Great Minnesota Get Together. So, Mike, thank you for being here with us, and share a little bit about some of your background, having been a former reporter with KSTP, and then with your work as the Fair Fellow. So talk a little bit about some of those things.
Well, Team Mychael, thanks for having me on this evening. Really appreciate it. Back in like 2005, I started working at the fair because I was so obsessed with it. So like you mentioned, I started working for KSTP when I was in college, and then I stuck with that kind of part-time, and then I started working full-time for KSTP back in 2011. I worked on Twin Cities Live, and then was really submerged in the fair. And there were years I would work 11 to 12 days out at the State Fair. And I was out there, gosh, some years I was there 120 hours over 12 days. I know that's not the highest total. You know, some of those 4-H kids, they're out there, they're sleeping out there. I wasn't at that level, but right. I was out there quite a bit. So I learned a lot about the Minnesota State Fair, reporting about it on TV, sharing my insider scoop, really submerging myself into the Great Minnesota Get Together.
Well, we've met some of those 4-Hers, and they've talked about what it's like being in those wonderful dorms there between the beef and the swine barn. And I just thought that was so delightful when he told his story about that. And you have some firsthand experience, at least getting to know some of those young people and getting a chance to speak with them firsthand when you were with KSTP and now as a continued Fair Fellow. Now, I'm not quite sure I know exactly what is a Fair Fellow.
A Fair Fellow is a made-up term, T. Mychael. Oh. Fair Fellow is just a made-up term that I want to share my wealth of knowledge about the fair with folks. And so I just kind of am an unofficial ambassador of the State Fair. So I have this wealth of knowledge. I feel that I just need to get it out of my noggin and just share this information with the masses. So that's why I'm so humbled and honored to be a part of this conversation tonight, and share some things that people can still celebrate the 2020 State Fair, even though the 2020 State Fair isn't happening in person. You know, you can't go to the fairgrounds per se and walk around with a bucket of cookies and a Pronto Pup and people watch. There's still ways that you can celebrate the State Fair.
Yeah. Well, you know, now you brought that up. That leads me to, I think, a nice segue you've given me for a question. Now that we're not experiencing it firsthand and in person, what are some of the things that, that you make it interesting instead for you, or that you might be involved in instead of the virtual part, not the virtual, but the one-on-one portion?
There's a lot of virtual stuff happening, but there are some in-person events that you can check out here during the course of the state fair in the journey leading up to Labor Day. One of them is a state fair virtual, it's an in-person / virtual event. So the state fair is having an arts exhibition. So what they've done over the course of the summer is they've asked people to submit their artwork. And what you can do is head to the fairgrounds and go see their artwork in person. Tickets are available for you to go and buy a time slot. Tickets are $10. They go back to the State Fair Foundation, and that foundation's responsible for upkeep of the fairgrounds. And then what you can do is go view this art in the final building. So it's really, really cool. Artwork from Minnesotans, our fellow Minnesotans. And you get a 90-minute time slot. You walk in, you can go view the different artwork from our fellow neighbors. That's actually happening on the fairgrounds, and that again runs through Labor Day. So there is an event happening on the fairgrounds. Of course, the food parade. Did you get your ticket to the food parade, T. Mychael?
Well, I have to admit, I've been doing pretty well on my own without going.
You're eating your own food parade. I went to the food parade, and all of my reviews, if you didn't get a ticket to it, on my website, givemethemic.com, I have a ton of photos. I have a ton of information about what happened. So if you weren't able to save one of those tickets, it's sold out in 2 hours. I have a whole little thing so you can kind of live vicariously through me about the food parade. I know tickets were very coveted for that event. Unfortunately, it's sold out. But when you go to the fair, T. Mychael, are you one to grab a beverage, maybe one of those specialty drinks?
You know, I have had my fair share. I'm a lemonade. I love those, and the smoothies and some of the other things. Yeah.
So the state fair is quite known for their specialty brews and their specialty beverages. And what they're doing this year is through Labor Day, so through September 7th, there's a list on the state fair's website, mnstatefair.org, where you can check out and purchase the specialty brews and beverages that the state fair is known for at different breweries around the Twin Cities. So one of them is the Mini Donut beer that is out of this world. It's from Liftbridge Brewing Company. They're out of Stillwater, so out in the East Metro. You can drive out to Liftbridge. It's right off of Highway 36, and you can go buy the Mini Donut beer. It's also really, really good, and you can get the rim salted with sugar. So it's not really salted, I guess, but you get sugar rim. I purchased these cups, by the way, because I'm obsessed with the fair. They were selling these in July, and I ordered a couple sleeves of them so I can drink my drinks during the fair at home with the state fair, right? Because why not?
That's great.
Yeah.
You really are a fair fellow.
I am a fair fellow, fair fanatic, whatever you want to call me. Yeah. Liftbridge is also selling a key lime pie beer. How does that sound?
I don't know. I don't know. You tell me how it sounds.
That's one I haven't had before, okay. And I'm gonna maybe drive out to Liftbridge and try that one. Other specialty beverages that you can typically only find at the fair is a place I love. It's Sociable Cider Works, and that's in Northeast Minneapolis. And what they're doing is they're selling their raspberry hard cider, which is out of this world. I've actually had that one before. Also, they're selling a sparkling honey hive. So they're selling their hard ciders. Those are both at Giggles Campfire Grill during the course of the fair. But now through Labor Day, you can go to Sociable Cider Works in Northeast. They have a huge outdoor patio, so you don't have to worry about being inside. And you can order those drinks that you could typically only get during the fair.
Will we be able to go to givemethemic.com to find out these things you're sharing, just in case they get passed? It's too numerous for us to write down.
I'm going through these pretty quick, and absolutely. So I have a full guide on my website, givemethemic.com. You can see everything that the state fair is doing and some of the other businesses that have booths at the fair. I have a full guide with everything that we're talking about right now on my website.
Seeing how we're not coming together, what's one of the things that you'll miss the most?
Well, I'm a huge proponent of people watching. I miss the community. You know, I miss the masses of people getting together. That's obviously going to be a huge hit. I think so many people look forward to the fair for many reasons. You know, obviously the food. You know, for a lot of these places, the businesses that are at the fair, a lot of these are local Minnesota-based businesses, and for a lot of them, it's a lot of profit too. So I feel for them as part of this big community. So I think that's, to answer your question, that's what I'm gonna miss the most, is just this community coming together. The fair is such a sacred place. It's just a happy place. It's always a positive place. I always have this vibe of whenever I step foot on the fairgrounds that it's just people are happy to be there. They're ready to, have a pound pup and see an animal give birth, which is something you might not see every day. And everyone has their traditions with the fair. You know, you might go on day one, or you might always go on the second Wednesday, or, whatever it may be. You have your tradition. You always park at the same park and ride. You always go with the same group of friends. That tradition, I think that will feel, you'll feel a little bit something lost this year, but I know it'll come roaring back here sooner than later.
I wanted to make sure that you get a chance to share with us a favorite memory or a closing comment you might want to share with our viewers.
Ooh, there's a lot of debate going on. It's not bad debate. It's not like who we're voting for in the presidential. It's what is the most underrated state fair food? Not the best state fair food, but but these are all really good state fair foods. But it's the most underrated state fair food. And on my website, last year at the 2019 state fair, I asked a bunch of people what they would say is the most underrated fair food, and I have hundreds of responses. And so it's been really fun to get people's reaction to that. And there's a few. I'll rattle them off really quick, but I would love to hear everyone's suggestions here tonight here on this webinar. Australian potatoes, they're worth the money. If you haven't had those, have you had those too, Michael? The Australian potato fairgrounds?
No, I haven't.
They're just big potatoes, and they cover them with cheese and sour cream, and orders like $13. But they feed like a family of 44. It's ridiculous. So those are really good. The cheese on a stick, which is just deep fried cheese,
right.
Which apparently is like, people love that. The London broil sandwich, which is actually part of the food parade. The onion rings, which are at a particular spot outside of the food building. And it's Danielson and daughters. Their onion rings are just dynamite. They're so good. And then also the Vecchio's deep fried ravioli.
You've given us some great insight on things that have been underrated, things that we have to look forward to in 2021, and the fact that if we have missed anything, or if we're interested in what isn't already being shared in this program, or what we haven't had a chance to experience, Give Me the Mic is the place.com. GiveMeTheMic.com to get the information you shared tonight, and where people can find more information in the future. You've been a great person to speak with. And anything you want to share with our viewers before we close out?
You know what? You're a legend, T. Michael, and thank you for this opportunity. People can join me on Facebook too. So it's just Give Me the Mic on Facebook, or you can search my name, Mike Marcotte. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter as well.
That's fantastic. All the best.
Thank you.
That Mike Marcotte. Wow. Fair fellow, fair fanatic, fair. And the food ideas are just coming in droves. People talking about wild rice burgers. I hadn't heard about that one. Cheese puffs or cream puffs, and all kinds of other food items that we just, people talking about pizza, Norwegian deep fried banana split. What? Stop them. Drop the mic. Drop the mic. We've had a chance to meet some remarkable folks, and I'm sure that you have, just as I have, really enjoyed their sharing so much about themselves, their connection to the State Fair, and what they hope that we'll be seeing more of, which we will be seeing more of in 2021. So here at AARP, our whole idea, our whole mission is to connect. You heard that both Mike and Jerry mentioned that the State Fair is sacred ground, and every person, whether it was Jerry or whether it was a Barb, whether it was Nolan or Jennifer, or whether it was Ron, everyone mentioned community. And that's what AARP is all about. Community, bringing people together. You know, even in the midst of all this social distancing, it's so important to have connections. There's so many points of entry when it comes to AARP where you can be involved, whether you be involved through membership, volunteerism, any other number of ways. You can find out more information about how you can do that, be a part of the AARP community through AARP.org, or rather AARP.org/Minnesota, MN. It's been a blast. And while we've talked about all these things about community and sacred space, those of you that are still watching, and I know it's everybody because no one would have possibly left this amazing program, but for those of us that are watching, we have a little insider gift for you, a little treat. It's something that gives you the first chance to see a commercial spot that celebrates AARP, its diversity, its services, its mission, and what we do best, create opportunities for all of us as we get older, experiences. Here's a chance to see what we got for you. Let's take a look.
Hey!
Hey!
Hi! It's time to crack an egg.
Easy, any style egg works here.
Or smile.
Well done, this looks great.
Time to share a story.
I have a great way to start our discussion.
With old friends or new ones.
When you're a caregiver.
Time to breathe in.
Inhale up, good job.
Then let it all out. It's never been easier to connect, learn, and have fun.
Cheers!
So let's do it together. Come find us at aarp.org/near you.